Welcome back to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast, where we explore what God is doing in Canadian cities. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers, and my guest today is Cory Kostyra. He's the pastor of Bradford Community Church, and he's making great inroads into his small city. Bradford is a bedroom community north of Toronto. And when I went online to research it, it described it as the primary country urban area of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, Ontario. This small city overlooks a farming community known as the Holland Marsh, located on the Holland River that flows into Lake Simcoe. We've never featured a country urban area on the podcast, but apparently that's a thing. There's a couple reasons I wanted to have Cory on today. In his previous occupation, he was part of the Ontario Provincial Police Traffic Support Unit that would clean up after highway accidents. Both superhighways 400 and 404 are major multi-lane arteries flowing in and out of the Greater Toronto area, and often dealing with injuries and fatalities along their routes. Unfortunately, Cory suffers from PTSD and has a story that will help us understand what many in police, CMS, healthcare, and other professions are facing. So we do want to talk about that, but we also want to hear about some of the open doors in community since Cory entered pastoral ministry. So Cory, welcome, and good to have you on board. Before we get into talking about anything too heavy or too spiritual, why don't we just talk about you a little bit? Where'd you grow up? Tell us about your important relationships and some of your passions in life.
Well, I grew up in the city of Toronto and grew up going to Evangel Temple, and not the Evangel Temple at the 401 on Yonge Street. I was actually in the building when it was down at Bond and Dundas by the Eaton Center. So,
wow.
Yeah, way back. And then obviously when the church moved up to Yonge and 401, I was there as well. So I grew up in the church and was there until I turned about 22 and got hired by the OPP. So I've got that. And then I grew up obviously in church, and I gave my heart to Jesus when I was 4 years old with my mom, and I haven't wandered away from that. I've made some mistakes along the way, like everybody else has. So I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but Jesus has always been part of my life right from when I was born. And I have coached hockey for 21 years, 8 years down in Toronto, and the rest of it up here in Barrie. I have been married for 27 years to my wife, Heidi. Totally married out of my league. She's amazing. She's a rock star and makes me look good. We have two children. They are 19, so a girl and a boy. Yes, they are twins. They're doing great. My son's going off into the military, and my daughter is doing arts. She is a brilliant artist, and I have trouble drawing stick figures, so she definitely didn't get it from me. So they're great. And we have 3 dogs, and I think we're at 2 birds. I'm not sure. They keep showing up in the house. My daughter's a bit of an animal lover. And yeah, I don't know if we have a fish or not, or I don't even know. I'm scared to go in my daughter's room, to be honest with you.
Well, when I look on screen, I see Lily, your therapy dog, with her vest back there on the couch, and so you'll have to tell us a little bit about Lily later. But let's just kind of jump into your career with the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, and what work you were doing with them, and just kind of give us an insight into the nature of that work.
I was, 28 years with the OPP and still employed. The last kind of working days in my career was a major collision investigator in the GTA. So everything from Fort Erie, almost out to Coburg, out to Kitchener, all the way up to Barrie, Brecken, huge area. And my main role was as a commercial vehicle inspector. I inspected commercial vehicles at an enforcement level, but primarily my responsibilities were more for the collision investigation. And I was a major spill cleanup guy. So
would most of your work happen after there was an accident, or were you also preemptive in looking for violations?
It was both, but my main responsibility was the major collision investigation. And then when I wasn't doing that and I had time, then I would go out and do enforcement. But a lot of times the enforcement would help so you could see the newest equipment that was out there before you saw it in a collision investigation. And so it was a lot of learning and a lot of keeping up to date with what was out there. And obviously with the spill cleanup, that can be very dangerous work if you don't keep up to speed on those things too. So there was a lot of training for sure.
So when a major collision would happen and you were called out, were you usually there after EMS, before, same time? Like, what was there any kind of predictability to it?
No predictability. Kind of one of those funny things, we kind of joke around, always let the ambulance get there first, but no, there really wasn't. It really depended where it happened and where we were when it happened. So, and then the team was kind of scattered all over the region. So, depending on where everybody was and it happened, someone would show up a half an hour later, and, you kind of get there as soon as you could.
Yeah. And I imagine that there were times that job was overwhelming. How do people prepare if they're a first responder? How do you go and deal with the horrors of accidents?
That's a really good question. Seems to be a work in progress as to learning how to do that. I was really good at what I did and I loved my job. But after 18 years, it just was a cumulative thing. It just got to be way too much. And, obviously there's some things that stick out in my mind a lot more than others. But it was just, it was a lot. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure exactly how to prepare for it. Hindsight's 2020. If I could do things differently, I would probably do some things different. But it's the job in itself is really difficult to even prepare for, because everything's an unknown and there's no different things are happening all the time. So it's, you can kind of get taught a lot of things, but you really kind of learning as you go too. I did the best I could, and obviously it caught up to me after a while, but it was a long time and it was a lot.
So talk about when the discovery of PTSD, comes a point where you actually have a diagnosis and something was going on that all of a sudden you realized, hey, I'm not well. I'm not functioning the way I should be. How did that happen? Was that a gradual thing? Was there a particular straw that broke the camel's back? What happened?
Again, hindsight is 2020. Looking back, there was a gradual sort of build up to it. And now looking back, I could see it clearly, but at the time I really didn't know. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was very short fused. My family put up with a lot, and I started changing and having trouble coping, and just eventually got to a place where I just couldn't handle it anymore.
So this gradual onset that you're able to see in retrospect, but before retrospect, when you were starting to deal with this unraveling within yourself. Can you kind of describe, what it was like to live inside your skin?
It was really tough, and it was tough to live around my skin, as my family would tell you. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was waking up with horrible nightmares, gasping for air, having trouble breathing at night, and just completely anxious. And it's kind of, you get to what PTSD is a kind of a constant state of hypervigilance. To make it really, really simple, because I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but to kind of make it really simple, you have the executive processing part of your brain that can balance a checkbook and can kind of weigh out consequences and cause and effect, and that kind of thing. You can make a 5-year plan for your life or whatever. Then you've got the amygdala part of your brain, which is the fight, flight, or freeze part of your brain, and not able to really think things through very well. It's all very quick, rapid responses. And when you're in a traumatic situation or a scenario, that is what kicks in, is your amygdala comes in, that fight, flight, or freeze part. And the executive part of your brain stops functioning. It doesn't work at that time. Once the trauma is dealt with and gone away, then that part of your brain shuts down and you go back to being a normal person, and be able to think through things. When that amygdala gets triggered too many times, it's different for everybody, and it may be once, it may be 1,000 times. It really just depends on whatever that depends on. Eventually, it doesn't shut off, or it doesn't shut off easily. So if you can imagine that you are constantly looking around, looking for danger, expecting bad things to happen, it's completely and totally exhausting. And functioning everyday life just doesn't happen, and everything's a challenge. You can't think. You can't give me a multiple syllable word, and I'd have to look it up multiple times. Or if you gave me 3 tasks to do, I could remember to do one, but then I'd have to be able to read the next 2, because it's just not there. It's quick, rapid decisions that you make, and it's exhausting. So it's a constant state of hypervigilance. So it affects everything that you do.
Are you able to talk about how the line of work you were in, were you experiencing PTSD in the midst of a work day, or was it more just after you came out of an event that you couldn't shut off, and all of these triggers were happening? What was going on?
I know that every time I had 2 phones. So one phone was I call it the bat phone, but the emergency phone. And then one was my personal one. And any time that the emergency phone went off, like my heart would start racing, and I got to a place where I hated hearing that phone go off, because it was bad pretty much almost every time it went off. Every once in a while it was somebody from the office calling, but for let's meet up for a coffee or something. But there was always that potential that when that went off, it was going to be bad. So I used to enjoy it when the phone went off. It was fun. I loved being in the middle of chaos. I loved being in the center of chaos, and I believe that I handled myself well, and I thrived in that environment. But I could only take it for a certain amount of time, to a certain point, and then I stopped functioning well in that environment.
Mm-hmm. I see a golden doodle named Lily back on your couch.
Yes.
And so tell us about therapy animals, and just other ways that you had to adapt and learn to process with PTSD.
Well, Lily, there's actually a couple kinds, a few different types of service animals or service dogs. She is actually not a therapy dog. Therapy would be like a St. John's ambulance kind of dog that goes into seniors homes, hospitals, kids,
Okay.
whatever, to sort of comfort them. Lily is actually a certified medical service dog to the highest standards in Canada, which are out of British Columbia. And so she is actually a medical service dog. And she is, she's with me most of the time. And her, when she's out and she's working with me, she is able to tell when things are going badly for me. And she will start her talking routine, and she'll run through my legs and get my attention until I get on my knees and focus on her and come back to where I'm at. She also, believe it or not, one of the things she does is she licks my bald head, and that helps bring me down and bring me around. And
You haven't been able to get Heidi to do that, eh?
no. And well, I shouldn't say not for lack of trying, but no, she doesn't. It's actually when Lily and her furry mummy is a 90-pound Doberman, the two of them actually go at it at the same time, and
Oh
I feel like I
man.
lose a layer of skin every once in a while. But
Oh, you're getting deep therapy there.
oh yeah. And Lily, she actually pulled me out of a Walmart one day, believe it or not. She dragged me out, and I was stuck in an aisle and I couldn't move, and I got down on my knees and I was having trouble breathing. And anyways, she stayed with me, and then when I could stand up, I grabbed onto the cart and she pulled me, and I steered the cart to a bench at the exit and was able to sit down there, and someone had to come get me. So
I'm amazed at how God has given us these creations that are able to help us. A couple guests ago, I was talking with Kelly Franklin, and a big part of her life has been therapy with horses.
Yes.
You too?
Oh yes, I have done equine assisted learning. I love it.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I have a horsey friend named China.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about horses, kind of on the food chain, there's grass, and then there's horses.
Yeah.
And their most important thing in their life is safety. So they are constantly in a state of hypervigilance, the fight, flight, or freeze mode, and that's why you see them, their ears are turning and looking around, and they're always paying attention to their environment. In a group of horses, there'll be kind of the lead horse, and then the other ones feel safer with that lead horse, and
somebody's watching, and the others
somebody's watching. And so you can let the guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, with if you can take an individual struggling with hypervigilance and put them with an animal that is hypervigilant naturally, if you don't calm down, if you don't slow your heart down, if you don't settle yourself, they will have nothing to do with you. But China and I brush her, I take her for walks, I do equine assisted learning in a group environment. Lily comes with us. Sometimes the three of us run together in the arena, and she settles me down, I settle her down, and there's just some of those days where it's just I get her right in the right spot and scrub behind her ears, scratch behind her ears, and she starts closing her eyes and her head goes down, and I start calming down. And it's probably some of the most peaceful, relaxing, therapeutic time that I have. And the group stuff is fantastic. The owner of the barn at Karuka Equestrian, she lets me go and visit China frequently, and she's been amazing. I love her.
Let's talk a little bit about the support. Once you realized that, and your family certainly was helping you to realize that something was going on inside you that was off. And how did you come to this diagnosis that it was PTSD? How did you look for help? What was the journey to being able to actually start healing?
It sucked.
Yeah.
Um, I have to, I really have to be careful how I answer that question, because as a Christian, we need to forgive, and we need to sort of, I mean, that's a key part of what we believe. And
Yeah.
it's been a real struggle. I asked for help from my employer, and really help was nowhere to be found, and they treated me like garbage.
Hmm.
And I like, there was really nothing there. The association bought me 2 breakfasts, and they really supplied no assistance at all. WSIB ignored me. I would call them. I had an active claim rolling, and I had uh, eventually got diagnosed. They didn't even find a psychologist for me. I had to go find one.
Hmm.
And I would call my caseworker, and it would take upwards of usually a month and a half. If I left a message saying I'm really in trouble, I need help, it would take about a month and a half for them to call me back.
Wow.
And so there was little to no support there available. And you can imagine, I've been pastoring for probably close to 20 years now. And I don't, I'm a tent maker, so I don't take anything for doing it. I just do it because I believe that it's just for me. That's
Fantastic.
to
So
do that. And imagine being a pastor with a service dog. You kind of, that can be problematic too. So it's been tough, to be honest with you. Some of the best supports, and the ones that have worked the best, have been not provided by my employer, not provided by Work WSIB. They've all been charities that have been able to step in and provide assistance. It's been really, really crappy. I haven't seen my psychologist or my social worker face to face for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some Zoom things, but like, that's got some limitations. So yeah, it's been a really crappy journey.
Yeah, and it's a journey that's ongoing, right?
Oh yeah.
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 So when I respect your position as a police officer, and understand that in a frontline profession like that, there's a certain sense of well, some people refer to it as the blue shield. There's this code that police officers live by. That sometimes you're stoic. You have to be somewhat detached emotionally to do the work. There's a very much of a training and an orientation and a professionalism that goes along. But sometimes, like your experience, it's harder to get the support and the help within the organization.
It's non-existent.
Yeah. So
you get told, it's okay to have a bad day, just ask for help and we'll be there. And the moment that you ask for help, it's career suicide, honestly. I mean, that's the bottom
yeah,
line. It's unfortunate that it is that way, but it's terrible, unreal.
yeah.
If I had treated, like, if I had responded to the calls that I went to by just ignoring them, I'd be charged under the Police Services Act for neglect of duty.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it's like all these years, and then all of a sudden you're in the garbage can. I've got some really good friends that have kept in touch,
Mm-hmm.
um, and have been good, but a lot of them haven't heard from them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes the ones that you don't expect are the ones that call and reach out and have been really good. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a, I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel that with what you've gone through, what you've suffered, that it has given you insights into the nature of police life? Not policing, that's the work, but police life, being an officer, living with a particular code. Um, certainly that lack of support is daunting, and you really are struggling with that. I get that, and at the same time, um, there's a lot of positives about policing that you would have experienced too. There would have been, just that sense of, serving the community and stepping into to situations that nobody else can step into. So when you think about other officers that and what they face on a day-to-day basis, I'd be curious to hear some of your insights.
I absolutely loved my job. I had a lot of fun. I got paid to ride a motorcycle. It was great.
That's a good gig.
Oh, this is a good gig. One day I got paid to drive Argos around a river and over top of furniture and all kinds of stuff. I got to ride in a GO train locomotive. Traveled Chicago, Texas, Atlanta. Um, so much stuff that was fun. And actually one day I got paid to jackknife tractor trailers.
What?
Oh yeah, it was so much fun. A lot of days I probably would have just done it for free, or maybe even paid to go do some of that stuff. But anyways, it was really good. I had a great career. I had a lot of fun. I got injured, obviously, and really, I mean, the bottom line is that the support really wasn't there as expected. So that really kind of hurt, and still does, and still working through that. So, yeah.
So people that are listening or watching the podcast will many of them will know people who are in policing or emergency services, soldiers, that kind of thing, and having lived on that side of the Blue Shield, how would you encourage people to make a difference in the lives of people that work the front lines? What's really helpful?
Just being understanding and caring, and like, I don't know, strangely enough, this is coming up on 4 years for me that of this PTSD journey, as far as diagnosis goes and treatment goes. Nobody has asked me, how can I help you?
Wow. Well,
like, even after I suggested it, how about, like, how can I help you? And nobody's asked that. Like, it's crazy. And then the ones that say, how can we help you? And you tell them, and okay, I'll get on that. I'll get back to you. And then you don't hear from them again.
right.
Really is, how can I help you? And what do you need? Or how can I support you? And, the Christian cliches don't work.
Right.
Alcohol doesn't work. I've never been drunk in my life. I don't drink. I don't do drugs at all. So that's not really a stumbling block for me. But I
Okay,
have
so
a friend that won't even leave the house. The only time he leaves the house is to come and see me.
wow.
That's it. He won't leave.
Okay,
And
so I'm your neighbor, and we chat in the driveway from time to time. And I'm not really your neighbor, but hypothetically. So I learn a little bit about what you do, and so Cory, how can I help you?
We have the best neighbors. Uh, they have a little daughter that comes and swims in our pool all the time, and they'll bring little treats over for the dogs. They'll bring little treats over for us, and uh, the husband, when his daughter come over go for a swim, he'd start doing gardening work around the pool. In the wintertime, when the snow is really, really heavy, I have an ATV with a plow, and he's got a tractor with a blower on it. And I'm getting ready to get geared up and come out. And the next thing I look out, and there he is. He's blowing my driveway clear. They just really, they really care, and they
Yeah.
take the time to just be good neighbors. And even their daughter, when Lily was going through her training, she actually helped. I would tell her what she needed to do, and
Yeah.
she was probably 9 or 10 at the time, and she would take Lily out and work with her. So, like, it's just being a good neighbor.
That really helps.
Absolutely.
And when you're struggling in PTSD, um, are you able to sense and know that kind of help? Is that something that in the midst of the hypervigilant state where you can't even comprehend the kindness, or do you sense it in the middle of it?
You know what? I appreciate so much when someone just takes the time out to do something or think of something, or um, it means a ton.
Yeah.
We have a lady in our church she likes doing artsy stuff, and so I'm a Blue Bombers fan, and so she made up these little hug cards because we weren't allowed to hug during COVID. So she made up these little cards like this big, not that big, and it's got little arms on it with Blue Bombers written on the arms, and it says, when you need a hug, just open up the arms, wrap it around you, and then put it back so it'll be ready for the next time. Okay, so it's not Hallmark, but I would take that over Hallmark any day.
Oh, for sure.
No offense to Hallmark, but like the
Yeah.
thought that went into that just meant the world to me. So the other thing that has been I've really appreciated was people that fought for me, because I've had to fight for everything.
Yeah.
And Citadel Canine Society, they're the ones that I worked with Lily. If I run into any problems, they fight for me. I don't have to do anything. I call them, and the next thing you know, they're on it.
Wow.
My psychologist is amazing when he finds out that whether it's somewhere in the process somebody is being abusive. He's like the big kid in the playground with the big stick. Like, they did what? Leave it with me.
Yeah.
And those even I ended up getting diagnosed with sleep apnea too, and I had to fight for all of that. And crazy thing was, the area salesperson from ResMed, she fought for me. Like, never met this person before in my life. So when somebody comes alongside of me, and you ask, what really, what really helps, how can I help you is one thing, but you sit here and I put, someone else puts the gloves on and fights for me when I can't, a lot of times can't fight for myself. That is like gold.
When you're on your game, when you're doing well, is that part of your nature that you like to fight for others?
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things.
Yeah.
Even my career, I was a peer support guy. So, and I don't know. It's just I'm not. It's not. I'm not any more special than anybody else. It just, I'm wired that way. I like to be involved with people and helping and supporting people. It just, it I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel like it's part of who I am. So if I'm not involved in doing that, I feel broken.
Yeah. Well, just switching into second gear here, and I don't know how many gears we got, but we're switching into second gear. And I want to talk about something you mentioned, that you've been involved as a pastor for about 20 years, and that's something that is, you're co-vocational. You don't rely on your church work as your source of income, but
No, it
you
costs me money. It costs me money to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No, yes.
some worry about how much they're going to get paid, and you're worried how much is this going to cost me. But yeah, that's I think just a an important dynamic, that, and we need a lot more people like you that take that view of ministry, that I'll do what I need to do to support myself, make a living, but my heart is to do ministry. And so talk a little bit about how that grew in you, and what that's looked like over 20 years and what it looks like now.
Well, one day I was praying, and it was a long, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And God told me that I was going to be doing some preaching. I was going to be doing some traveling, and I wasn't allowed to ask for anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I told my best friend and Heidi, my wife, and didn't tell anybody else. No one. All of a sudden, my phone started ringing. Pastors that I knew in Michigan, too, in particular, actually called me up and said, "When are you coming to preach at our church?"
Wow.
Like, whenever you invite me, like, I'll be there. So, yeah, loaded up whatever it was, a minivan at the time or whatever, and drove down there, and went down 2 separate weekends, actually, to a couple different churches. And then another guy up in North Bay said, "Hey, when are you going to come and preach at our church?" Whenever you ask. And so I was living in the Cookstown area, and North Bay is about 2.5, 3 hour drive. So I went up there, and then when I was done, he came back down here to visit with me, and he said, "I want you to be the youth pastor of our church." Well, that's interesting. A 2.5 hour commute on a good day. Anyways, I said, "Well, I'm going to have to get back to you." And we were going to say no, and God told both Heidi and I individually, the answer is yes, and you're going to North Bay. And so we would load up the kids. They were about 2 at the time, and we had a couple Dobermans and a minivan, and we drove up to North Bay. We commuted to church every weekend, up to North
Wow.
Bay, slept on air mattresses in a trailer. And it was kind of funny. One night, I hear these stories about people starting out ministry, and I loaded up my station wagon and drove the family across the countryside, and was sleeping here and there, and so here I was in the middle of the night. Heidi and I were laying on an air mattress that was deflating as we were lying on it, with the
Nice.
2 Dobermans, lying on. We were sleeping on the floor of a trailer, and I started laughing. I was like, "We've got a story, but this is awesome. I'm having so much fun." So we loved it. But I was doing 40 plus hours, actually probably a lot more than that with overtime and everything. I was doing my regular career OBP work at the same time. So it was a bit of a juggle, but it was good. And we did. And then when we kind of stopped that, I parked my family at Bradford Community Church, and I was a youth pastor at Flemington Park down in Toronto. So it was just too much to be hauling everybody all over the place, and we needed to kind of stabilize. So I was going down there and doing youth services, and then the odd Sunday, and then I would be here with my family. And that went for 2.5 years. And then once that finished, then I was considering actually leaving the policing and going into pastoring, sort of a youth pastor sort of thing. And just nothing was right. It wasn't the right thing. It wasn't the right fit. We just knew it wasn't right. And then we were asked to stay. We were asked to come on as the associate here in Bradford. And so that was about a dozen years. And we've had some pastoral changes here, or we're in transition. And I've come on as the interim pastor here in Bradford. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm having so much fun. The people are amazing. We've got an amazing board here. And there's just some really, really cool and exciting things that are going on here. And again, tent maker.
Yeah. So. Well, I want to ask you about some of the things that you're given the lead on in Bradford, in your community. You were telling me about something you were doing with students, like a student hiring program, but then also I want to hear about the trailer park that you've started. And yes. So tell us about those two things and anything else that's kind of, what talk about the adventure of being a church that rubs shoulders with the community and actually gets involved.
Okay, don't let me forget about Apostle Paul. At the end, I want to tell you about him.
Okay. Apostle Paul.
Yeah. Okay. So we received government funding here for a number of years to run a summer day camp. So it was a summer student job program from the federal government as a grant. And we had these day camps here. Anyways, when I took over in the spring, I worked really hard to try to find somebody that would do that. And I couldn't find anybody to take that over. So speaking with the board, we decided to kill the program. And got thinking about it and talking about it, say, well, what about this? What if we went back to the government and with a new program idea, and we'll call it the Summer of Service. And basically, we had approval at the time for 14 summer students. And so we went to the government and said, this is what we want to do. We can't do the summer day camp, but we would like to hire these kids. And we want to cut them loose on the community, serving the community. And they went for it. We got approval. And these kids, we had 14 paid for by the government. We were paying one. And then we had a whole bunch of them that came that weren't being paid. And some people would use the term volunteer. I use the term servant because you can't find the word volunteer in the New Testament. Right. So we call it the Summer of Service. The kids were involved in helping the homeless. They worked at the food bank, the clothing store, the clothing bank, the Out of the Cold Cafe. They were helping a ministry that deals with human trafficking. They were going to seniors' homes and doing gardening and helping them with their house stuff. They did music at seniors' homes. They sang "O Canada" with the mayor at a seniors' home. They did car washes, free car washes. One of the cool ones, one of our go-tos was the local Starbucks. They would stand in the drive-through and they would play music and sing and stand there with a garbage bag and take garbage out of people's cars. And they handed them little cards that they hand wrote messages, you were loved and you're special and have a great day, and handwritten cards. Wow. And the crazy thing is that a lot of the ideas were driven by, and I worked through a lot of them, but I wanted them to come up with their own ideas. And they came up with this idea to write up these little tiny cards, handwritten with encouraging messages on them. I thought, wow, this is kind of whatever. I didn't see the point of it, like, okay, whatever. Well, this is it. Like, this became huge. these cards were getting passed around. It was going on Facebook. Hey, I got one of these cards at Starbucks. It was amazing. And then, weeks later, someone would come through as, oh, I got the one from the last time. I still got it. And they bought it in their car and they get another one. And they would accept nothing. We would accept nothing. And so the one time at Starbucks, I don't know how many times it happened, but this pay it forward thing happened. The kids refused to take anything. And so people were going up to the window to pay for theirs. They pay for theirs and pay for the one behind them. And it just kept going and going. And we had no idea. And the kids were singing and dancing. And oh, my goodness, it was crazy. They were cleaning up garbage in parks, Home Depot.
Wow.
Helped out in restaurants, cleaning up, opening for COVID because we were reopening. They did a kids play day here, a fun day. Oh my goodness, the list goes on. Actually, the summer of service, yeah.
Summer of service, yeah. And
the funny thing was, sorry, the funny thing was this lady, she lived in Newmarket, and one of the kids made contact with her, and she had some tenants or something that left a mess when they left, and she needed some help. And so one of the team leads who made this connection took her team down to work in this lady's yard. And so they did all kinds of stuff. And at the end of that project that day, this woman offered them fudgesicles. And they said, nope, we can't accept anything. And well, this woman got all upset. Well, I have to give you something. Like, no, we won't accept anything. I just want to give you fudgesicles. No, we're not allowed to accept it. This woman starts praying in the middle of her home that God would make a way for her to be able to give these kids fudgesicles. So the team lead gets me on the phone and says, hey, someone here needs to talk to you. And like, okay. And this lady, this senior elderly lady, she gets on the phone and says, you're Pastor Cory. I said, yep. Well, I have a gifting. My giftings are hospitality. Do you know what that is? And like, I think so. And well, I have a gift of hospitality. And these kids have come here and done such amazing work. And my gifting is in hospitality. And I can't let them leave without giving them a fudgesicle. And they tell me they're not allowed to take a fudgesicle. Are you going to let an old lady give these kids fudgesicles, or is this going to be a problem? I'm like, you can give them fudgesicles. I'm out, And yep. So she's been known all summer as the fudgesicle lady.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So she's kept in touch, and the kids have gone there a few times, and it's been kind of fun. And she's called me a couple times, and she sent a letter. And anyways, the kids were amazing.
So what did you as a pastor and the church, what did that summer of service teach you or tell you or reinforce in you?
Well, if you look at what it meant to be a disciple to the first century Christians, that wasn't just a student. That wasn't a learner. A disciple was an imitator, a mimicker, a copier. So if you were a disciple of a master, you walked like that master, you dressed like them, you talked like them, you did what they did, you went where they went, you wore the same shoes, you acted the same way, you copied them and imitated them. Well, everything that Jesus did was to seek and save the lost and serve others.
Yeah.
Everything. Nothing, like everything fit into that. So with these kids, it was like, you know what? We're out to serve you. We're out to share Jesus. This is what, and people would ask, well, why are you doing this? Well, because this is what Jesus did. This is what Jesus would do. We're here to serve our community. And like the mayor was calling and reaching out to us. Can you help with this? Our provincial, some of the leads went and met our provincial government representative for our area. Like it was huge, and it's caught on to our church. They're getting it, and now the crazy thing is that the summer is basically coming to an end. They've got a few hours they need to finish up for their commitment, but these kids aren't stopping. Like when their hours are done, they are going to keep going. And the crazy thing is, let's be real. For the most part, what you and I grew up with as a youth service does not work anymore. It's changed. And these kids, every day they would come in, they would do their own devotions, they would pray, then they would go out and do their work, and they had so much fun together. So we've teamed up with another church in the area in Tottenham, and we're combining our groups. And every week, their youth program is they're going to go out and do a project in the community, serve the community. They're going to get together, they're going to do their own devotional time, and they're going to go and have some fun. And
that would be fun to get some of those 15, 14 and one paid together on a Zoom call with you, just to talk about summer of service, but because I bet you they got the best stories. And I'm also thinking that 10 years from now, that there are seeds that were planted in that summer of service that are going to be we're going to see the fruit of that, some of those things 10 years from now. So very, very good. We're getting a little tight on time, but so I do want to hear about the trailer park, and you got to tell me about that.
This is crazy. We had a building fire in town back in March or April or something like that, and there's basically 80 some odd families that were put out. So imagine you're living in an apartment, the smoke detector goes off, fire alarm goes off, and you figure somebody's burned another piece of toast or something. So you just walk out the building and stay in the parking lot waiting for them to let you back in. Well, that didn't happen. They were not allowed back in the building for 3 months. Whatever they left the building with, that was all they had. So they didn't have their license, they didn't have their wallet, they didn't have their phone, they couldn't go back and get it. So they were basically out on the street. Well, we have a huge housing crisis, shortage of housing and affordable housing. It's a major issue across the country, but we're no exception to that. So nowhere for these people to go. They had only what they had on their backs when they walked out. And if they could find something to rent, an apartment to rent, a lot of them had been there for a long time, so they're paying $800 a month for rent, or whatever, a lower amount. Well, to get that same thing now, you'd be paying a couple thousand. So no way to go about that. Anyways, the Red Cross was involved for a little while, and some other groups. There was a ministry in town called Wow Living that was also involved with the Out of the Cold Cafe. Anyways, I called when I heard about the fire. I called a couple different places and said, "We're here. We'll do what we can. Let us know." And I didn't hear anything for about a month, and then all of a sudden, this Wow Living contacted me, Jody, who I've known for years. She called me and said, "Hey, would you guys entertain putting a trailer in your parking lot to house one of the families from the fire?" And I said, "Absolutely. But I could do you one better. We have a portable that's sitting out there that's not being used, a lot of storage and stuff in there. What if we rent out that and turned it into a small apartment for somebody?" "Well, that would be great." So we got together, we met, and the crazy thing is that our portable got completely renoed. New floor, new ceiling, new lighting, electrical, all the rest of it. And it cost the church that much.
Wow.
That's zero. You can see the background. I'm going to get right in the camera. It cost us nothing. The community came together and they did it. And then we had another family that needed a place to go. And so we looked around, and as you know, during COVID, you can't buy puppies, you can't buy boats, bicycles, or trailers, RV trailers. Well, we came across a trailer, a fifth wheel trailer, and we bought it. The church bought it. And so we put it on the property, and we have housing another couple in there. While living, purchased another fifth wheel trailer and put that on the property. So we got somebody living in there now as well. Then we turned our janitor's closet into a shower in the church, And so we involve the church people. There's shower times, and come and sit here and be here when open the building for them so they can go in. And that happened. And so we had people coming here all the time doing that. And then Wow Living raised $50,000. Yes, 50,000 in 3 weeks to buy a portable double shower bathroom.
Wow.
So sink, toilet, and shower times 2 in the one unit. And so we now have that parked on our property. Mm-hmm. Crazy thing is that we've got people coming from all over the community that are coming to use the shower out in our property. We have a lady and her, well, they're older, like the mom, she just like, it takes her 10 minutes to walk across the parking lot kind of thing. They're living in their car. They come and they have showers here. We have somebody living in the area that's living in a shack with no running water, no electricity. He comes here for showers. We have a tent city that is within spitting distance from our church that we had no idea was there. We have them coming here. And it's just been absolutely amazing. And the crazy thing is that they have become part of our church family. We love them legitimately, and they're coming to church. A couple of them gave their hearts to Jesus and got baptized in one of our services, and it's just been amazing. It's been amazing. So I love them. And so now we've got this other project where we're with Wow Living, where we're turning a park model trailer into a all year round trailer, and for winterizing it. So that's another project. And eventually one of those families, that's going to be their home.
What's really incredible is that you have community support behind this. They're not, chasing you down with zoning bylaws and I'm assuming they're not. The fact that they're feeding into it.
Well, the mayor was here, had come and visited, and I one of the things that I do is I like to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. And so I called the mayor whisperer, also known as Pastor Howard Courtney. Probably many people know who
I know Howard. Yeah.
I said, the mayor's coming here. This is what we're doing. Help me. What do I say? How do I handle this? And he said, well, I don't want to intrude, but if I can be there in about 20 minutes, if you like, absolutely. So the mayor's been here. Now they have basically told Wow Living that any permits that need to be acquired to do what we're doing, they will help us, not only help us get them, they will waive any fees that we would incur getting the permits. And it's crazy.
Wow. Talk about having favor. I mean, that's a gift from God to have that kind of favor. And
yeah, but you know what? It is. You say that it is, but you know what? Like I told you when we were talking about with me, like, how can I help you? Right. I thought I knew what Bradford needed. I didn't have a clue. Yeah. The moment I called them and said, how can we help you? The floodgates open. Like it's we have to get outside of our cozy little church gatherings, and maybe also known as coming to church on Sunday for a spiritual bubble bath. Yeah. We got to get out of that. Like we have to be Jesus. Get out into the community, seek and save the lost, and serve others. And it's amazing when you go out and ask, how can we help you? What does the town need? Where are the needs? It does not take long. And now I'm getting messages from the town. I've got Wow Living basically is now set up here all the time. We'll have upwards of 30 people here during the day, in and out, serving the community. It's amazing. And it doesn't take much.
Cory, we can learn a lot from guys like you and churches like yours that have that servant helpful attitude towards the place that they live. Hey, we're getting down to the end, but got time for one more story. So final story, you got to tell us about the Apostle Paul.
Well, the neat thing about him, we've all read his letters, most of us, we've all read his letters. And if we take a step back for a minute, he was a tent maker.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that meant, whether it was a prayer shawl kind of thing, or it was an actual physical tent that you slept in, whatever that was, the point is that he worked, and that helped support what he did in ministry. And I think that's interesting because, to be honest with you, me personally, I hate this term full-time ministry. It just, I don't understand that, because as Christians, I think we're all there.
It'd be like saying, well, I have a full-time marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a full-time son.
Right.
Yeah.
So I look at that and I say, well, that's interesting. And then, if you look at Paul writes about his thorn in the flesh. Okay. What was that thorn in the flesh? And there's lots of speculation from people with lots of letters after the name and everything, but I'm going to give you mine, what I think. If you read up to that point where he starts talking about his thorn in the flesh, he says, I was flogged, I was left for dead, I was stoned, I was imprisoned, I was this, I was that, I was beaten, I was tortured, I was, shipwrecked how many times, all those things he goes through. And then he starts talking about this thorn in the flesh. Apostle Paul, he had PTSD, period. He suffered multiple traumas over and over again. And if you're looking in context, read the thing together. Don't read I have a thorn in the flesh on its own. Read what leads up to it and what's after it. And he says like, there was a book that was written called Your Body Keeps the Score. And I've only read a little bit of it, but basically, even in that statement alone, what happens up in here shows up physically in your body. So me not being able to get out of Walmart, me not being able to speak because something triggers me and I can't talk, that is PTSD related, and it shows up physically. It shows up in what I can and can't do. And I have limitations. And I look at what he says, he goes through all that and he says, I have a thorn in the flesh. And then he says, well, I've asked God to take it away 3 times and he didn't. Yeah. And we sometimes as Christians, well, if you're not healed, you don't have enough faith, or if you're not healed, you haven't said the prayer right, or you haven't done this. Like, what a pile of crap that is. I mean, really, we believe in healing, sure. But God, in his sovereignty, sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. But Paul turns around and says, you know what? Even though I've got this thorn in the flesh, in my weakness, that is an opportunity for God to empower me to do amazing things. It kept him humble, but it also like, okay, I can't do this on my own. I am going to allow God to empower me to go and do something amazing. So I look at my journey and where I'm going and where I'm coming, and I've got a long way to go. I'm not there yet. And but I have this thorn in the flesh, and whether God's going to take it away or not, it doesn't mean that's whatever that's going to be. But you know what? I want to be a disciple of Jesus. I want to do what he did. I want to seek and save the lost, and I want to serve others, because that's the example he set. So I'm not going to let some stupid PTSD slow me down from that. And we're going to keep pressing forward. We're keeping with the laws and the rules as best as we can here. We're not breaking any rules. We're doing the best that we can, but that is no reason for us to slow down. And if you look at a time in history, in our lifetime, where people needed hope and they needed to see life and peace and hope and joy, well, giddy up, it's now. So put up or shut up, get out there, and we've got to do something. And so here we are. Come and visit anytime. I would love to have people come and see what's going on here. I'd love them to meet our new friends and family that are joined our church, that are living in trailers on our property. They're amazing people.
I love what Cory Kostyra is doing in Bradford. And I also love the fact that that thing in his life that was such a point of weakness actually becomes something that shapes his heart and opens him up to understand vulnerability in a lot of new ways. On our next episode of Sidewalk Skyline Podcast, I'm going to be talking with a longtime friend of mine and a co-worker, Kevin Saunders. When I first began to plant New Song Church in Windsor 27 years ago, it wasn't too long after I started that Kevin Saunders became a part of our team. He had been involved in ministry in the city, and it was probably a couple of years in when he came and joined our team. And then he would later on go on to minister in another church in Michigan, a church in our neighboring bedroom community of LaSalle, and then 14 years ago planted a church called Lifeline Church. Recently, after a couple of years of talking about it with the leadership of both of our churches, the decision was made that Lifeline Church would come into and be part of New Song Church. So we're working together again. And so Kevin and I are going to talk about just some of the deep lessons that we've learned in urban ministry, and some of the experiences we've had over the years, and how following the mission of God into the city has actually had an effect on shaping who we are today. So I hope you'll come back on our next episode and listen to that. And until the next time that you can join us, I'm Kevin Rogers, and you're listening to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.